Okay, so in question 3, we are supposed to implement it using the object-oriented programming. So we'll go ahead and we'll start that. Okay, so this is the question. It says there is a class employee, okay, and then we directly look at the first part that says that there is going to be a constructor and some methods that we'll be creating eventually. So let's go ahead and create a Python file. This is question number 3. Okay, so we are supposed to create the class and the constructor, and then we also have to include the declaration using comments. Okay, so we have the class employee, so we'll write class employee, and the employee class is supposed to have some attributes and inside the constructor. So what does the constructor do? It will initialize the hourly pay, the employee number, and the job title here from the values passed as parameters and initialize all 52 elements in the pay year 2022 to 0.0. Okay, so this pay year 2022 would be our array, which would have 52 values. So that would be the first part. So we'll write the constructor, define init. Then we have the hourly pay, the employee number. So let's call it hourly pay HP. Then the employee number, which is EMP, and then job title would be JT. And then we'll have self dot. So they've not asked us to make these private, so we'll make them public. So self dot hourly pay is equal to HP. Self dot employee number is equal to EMP, and then self dot time. So job title would be equal to JT, like this. Okay, so the first part is done, and then they're saying that you also need to initialize all the 52 elements of pay year 2022 to 0.0. Okay, there are multiple ways of doing this. We'll just do the simple way that we can just append 0.0 in all of these values. So for I in range 52, we'll set every value to of pay year dot append, and we just append 0.00. And before this, the array would be empty as well, so we need to make it empty like this. So this would be self dot pay year, which is the array 2022 is equal to an empty array, so we need to add 2022 below here as well, like this. Okay, so this would end up adding all the values here. We need to add self dot here as well. Okay, so this would add all the 52 zeros into the array. Then we move on to the next part that says you have to write the getter method for employee number. So this is very simple. In fact, it's always a good idea if you write multiple getter methods, even if the questions didn't say so. So get employee, and then we have the number self, and we'll simply return employee number like this. Then they're saying that there's a method called set pay. This is going to take a week number and the number of hours worked that works weeks as parameters. Okay, so let's do that. So we have defined set pay. Set pay will have a week number and self week number, and then the number of hours worked. So hours worked or something like this. And then they're saying calculate the pay for that week by multiplying the hourly pay by the number of hours worked in that week. Okay, so we simply have to multiply it with the hourly pay that we have. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now how do we actually get that pay? So if we go into the question above, pay year 2022, this array will store the amount the employee has been paid each week, right? So as always, we'll visualize this. So pay year 2022 is equal to like this. So there would be 50, there are 52 weeks in 1 year. So we'll have multiple values. We'll have, let's say 100, then maybe 250.0, then 590.3, then maybe 52, or maybe 50.7, etc. So we'll have values like this in our week array. So whatever week number we get, we need to go to that index and we need to extract the value out. And again, in Python, the indices start from 0, right? Whereas the weeks that the user will give us would definitely start from 1. So we'll have to make sure that we cater to that. Okay, so we'll say self dot pay year 2022 week number. Okay, so this week number would be, maybe it could be week number 5. But again, in our array, the indices start from 0, right? So this is very important. This is 0, 1, 2, 3. So when somebody says week number 1, they are actually referring to index 0. So that is why we'll subtract 1 from here because of the difference of index. So let's go and change it back to week num, and week num minus 1 is equal to, so we're simply going to multiply the hours worked times the hourly pay, which is again given to us in this attribute self.hourly pay. So self dot hourly pay like this. Simple enough. Okay, then we move on to the next part. The next part says that store the calculated pay in the appropriate index. Okay, we have done that. The method get total pay returns the total of all the values in the pay year 2022. So we simply have to sum this array. This is as simple as a question can be. So define get total pay, and we don't have to pass in any parameter. Okay, so in order to do that, we'll set the, let's say, pay sum to 0. And then we'll loop through all the values. So we'll say for I in range 52, which is the number of weeks that we have in total, or the number of items we have in the array. And then we'll go to every item and then we'll say pay sum plus equal self dot pay year current index. Pay year 2022 current index. And we'll keep on adding the value here. And then at the end, we will return the value of pay sum. Just the very old and conventional summing the 1D array. Okay, so with this, our whole class is complete and we can hide it here like this. Okay, now on to the next part. They're saying the manager class will inherit from the parent class employee. Okay, so let's do that. Class manager will inherit employee like this. So just commenting next to it that this means manager is an employee, where this is the parent class and manager is the child class or the subclass or in the superclass, whatever you want to use or say here. Okay, so a manager gets a bonus. This bonus value is example for percentage 10. When calculating the pay, the number of hours worked that week is increased by the bonus value. Okay, so again, 10% bonus simply means the increase of 1.1. So we'll use this logic here as well. Okay, so we have some data here. We have the bonus value, we have the constructor and the set pay. Okay, so they're saying write the code to declare the class manager. You do not need to declare the class. You only need to declare the class and constructor, no other ones, and use declarations for the attribute types. Okay, so let's see. We have the define init, and let's see what values are we getting here. So in the constructor takes the bonus value, the hourly pay, employee number, and the job title, initializes bonus value to its parametric value. Okay, so everything else is the same. It's first of all going to take the bonus value, or let's call it bonus maybe, and then everything else remains the same. So the remaining part would have the hourly pay, so HP, EMP, and JT. So first thing that we'll do here is, because all of these values are already being initialized in the parent class, that is employee class, So we don't need to basically redo the whole thing in this constructor. What we can do here is we can use the super function. So what does super function do? Okay, so it would be, so by the way, this bonus needs to be at the end because we are going to make a class super call to the parent class. Okay, so when I write super like this means call the method from the parent class. Okay, so from the parent class, we are going to call the constructor. So we'll say init like this, and then we'll pass in the employee ID, the and then we have the so this will be hourly pay employee ID, and then whatever the third value was, like this. So what this will do is it will copy all these values. It will copy all these values. It will go all the way up. It will bring them there, and then it will initialize all the attributes because we don't need to redo it. It is already being done in the parent class. So this is what super does. It calls the method from the parent class. Okay, once this is done, the only new value here we have is the bonus value. So we need to set it to the new attribute, which is bonus value as given in the question, and we do that here. And that's it. Then they're saying do not declare any other methods. Okay, so we need to write the attribute declaration as well. So bonus would be of type real. So in Python, this would be of type float. Okay, in the second part, they're saying the manager method setPay overrides the method from the parent class. And okay, so overriding means that same function name and same parametric count, and then different implementation based on the class it is called in. Okay, so if a function is written in the parent class, like let's say test maybe, and then there's another child class, so we have a child class, and then test is also written there. So if we call the function test from the child class, it will behave as it is uh, going to expect for the child class, and it will behave differently if called from the parent class. So this is what overriding is, and overriding is used to implement polymorphism, which is essentially the same thing, taking multiple forms. So the manager method setPay overrides the method from the parent class and the takes the week number and the number of hours as parameters. Okay, so define, we'll say setPay, and then self, and then again same parameters as before, so week number and then the hours worked, and then they're saying increase the number of hours worked by the bonus value and set pay from, call the set pay from the parent class. Okay, so now we need to increment the value, increase the number of hours worked by the bonus value. So we are getting some bonus value here, and then we need to do some calculation to increase the to the number of hours. Okay, so let's check how we actually can do this. Maybe let's call a variable new hours. So new hours will be equal to the current hours worked into. Okay, so let's look at the bonus. So what is bonus? It will be a percentage. Okay, it represents a percent. So if there is a bonus of 10, then that means it's a 10% increase of the current value. So we just have to do simple math here. So there are multiple ways of doing it. So 10% divided by 100 is simply 0.1. So you can either multiply it one by one, or you can do it in the any other way. So let's use the simplest method, which is this 1 plus self dot bonus value. So we'll add 1 in the current bonus value and we'll divide this value by 100. So it's the same thing. You are just taking the percentage of a percentage increase of 10%, or you can just multiply it by 1.1 directly like this. So this would give you the new hours worked based on the bonus that the person got. And now they're saying in the third part that you have to call the set pay from the parent class. So just like we discussed above, we have to use the super call. So super dot, and now we can get all these methods automatically inside the idle. So I'll call the set pay method like this, and then in the set pay method they're saying that we have to set this new number or set the new pay. So week number would remain the same, and this number of hours would be the new hours that I'll pass in here. That's it. right? So this is the idea of this question. We're done with this part, then moving on to the next part, which is part C. So let's see what are they asking here. They're saying the main program has a global 1D array employee array to store the data about 8 employees. All right, the file employee stores about the employees in this order. Okay, let's open the file first of all and see for ourselves what's happening here. Okay, so we have data here. So it says the data is stored in this order. So there would be 4 items of data: pay, number, bonus, and title, wherever included. Okay, so it's not compulsory, it's optional. So pay, number, and job title. So we have pay, number, job title. So this person does not get any bonus. Again, you're not supposed to change the original file. Okay, that's why it's important to create a backup. Then we have the job title here. Okay, so again, this person does not get any bonus. Okay, this person has a bonus, right? Because they have 3 numeric values followed by the job title. Again, no bonus, and again there is a bonus. So this is what you have to do. We are supposed to figure out which person is getting a bonus and which is not getting a bonus. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people who did not get a bonus out of 4 employees. Okay, so only employees who are managers have a bonus value saved. For example, the first employee is junior developer, and then third employee is an manager, so that is why they have a bonus. And write the main program. Okay, so let's hide all of this code. So write a main program. We have the main program here, like this. Okay, main program where we have to declare the array to store the data about 8 employees. So very simple. We just have to create an empty array in this case, and let's call it employee array. Employee array is equal to initially empty. Okay, read in the data from the file for each employee and instantiate each employee as either employee or the manager. Okay, so we have to figure out whether an employee is an employee or a manager. Okay, now in order to do this, we have to basically use the read line function. Okay, and then depending on the line that we get, we can figure out if this would be an employee or whether it would be a manager. So just like we discussed, what is happening is that if there is a bonus, the first 3 values would be float values. And that is basically what we'll try to do. So we'll have 1 float, 2, 3, and then the 4th value would be a string value. If the 4th value is a string value, then that means it's going to be a manager, or this person got a bonus, otherwise they did not. Okay, now again, there are multiple ways of doing this problem, so you can choose to do it however you want to. There's also another way that we can use, that is the bonus would always be, so if you separate these out here using any method of your choice, so bonus would be on index 0, index 1. Index 2 will always have a bonus here, right? So if the value at index 2 is not a float value, that means they do not have a bonus, right? So if we separate this out, and then this is the value here at index 2, so this is again somebody who did not get a bonus. All right, so let's start this. We have to read the file and open the file. Okay, so we'll do try and we'll do except, because we're doing file handling, so it must always be done inside try except. Oh, okay. The file is equal to open, and we're going to open employees.txt, and we're going to open it in read mode, and then we'll eventually close the file like this. Okay, once this is done, then we are supposed to read the lines of the file. Okay, now how many lines do we have here? In fact, let's just print all the lines. So for line in F, print line dot strip like this. and then maybe you can print file processing error like this. Okay, let's see if it prints all the data here. Yes, it prints all the data, and I forgot to bring back the file in the original form. So this is how it should be. Here we go. So this is the file, and we are able to print out all the values now. Okay, now the real part is that we have to figure out whether someone is an employee or they are a manager, a simple manager or an employee. Okay, so first we'll do is we'll try to get three values at a time. So we'll do it differently. Okay, so if we use this method here, it would not work because we cannot separate out the number of lines. So let's say if I want to read 3 lines at a time, so this cannot be done here. We instead would need to switch to while loop for this. Okay, this for loop will automatically go to the next line. So let's get rid of it. And we know that there are 8 employees, right? So just like I did before, we are supposed to create we're supposed to create 8 sets. So this would be the first one, then this would be the second one, then the third one, then the fourth one, but obviously you cannot add these spaces. I'm just adding these for convenience, but this is what we have to do. So now let's try. So I know there are going to be 8 values in the array. So I'll run the loop 8 times for I in range 8. Okay, so for every iteration of the loop, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to read the pay, and then I'm going to read the employee ID, and then I'm going to check the third line, right? Because the third line will tell us whether this is going to be someone who got the bonus or did not get the bonus. So let's get the value. We have the hourly pay, so hourly pay, or let's call it HR pay, is equal to f dot read line. So this will read just one line at a time. And let's just, if I print the value of HRP, so it will print first 8 lines like this. Okay, working fine. Again, this should all be cleaned as well. Okay, like this, right? So this is working fine. Then if I have another one, so the next thing is employee ID. Employee ID is equal to f dot read line strip as well. Okay, now let's print the employee ID out as well. Employee ID.
I have a question.
Okay, so if I run this again, so here we are getting the hourly pay and then the employee ID, then the hourly pay, then employee ID, then the hourly pay, employee ID, etc. Now you can clearly see that the third value here is again being misread because we're using 2 values. So now we'll have the third variable here. Again, the third variable is going to be the most important one because the third variable is going to decide what sort of employee this is. So let's call it maybe let's call it unknown. Okay, so we call it unknown, and then we're also going to read the line here, and we're going to strip the value like this. Okay, so once we have done this, and let's run it again. So we have the unknown here, and if I run it again, okay, here we go. Now we have all the 3 lines being read. So what is happening here? So it's reading 3 lines at a time. So these 3 lines from the file, then the second set of 3 lines, it's reading here, then the third set of 3 lines here. Okay, so now we know clearly here that in this set of values, this is supposed to be someone who got the bonus. So 5.25 would be a bonus here, but in this case it would not be a bonus because this is a string value. So this is the sort of logic we are going to go for here. Okay, and the pay is also the pay is going to be a float number, and this is going to be a string number. So we have to be very careful with it. So I'll just convert it into float here as well. And if I print it again, so it will still be the same thing. Okay, now it's going to give a file processing error, but we'll figure that out just in a second. Okay, now once we have this, now we're going to again try to write the data into our employee array based on what we are getting so far. Okay, so here we're printing the value. Now we're going to try further, try and accept. So what we're going to try here is that we're going to try to convert our value, unknown value here, into a float value. Okay, so again, what is the logic of that? So I'll open the file back here. So when I get these three values, if I try to convert this into a float, it would create an exception, right? So when it creates an exception, this would definitely tell me that the value is basically someone who got the bonus, right? And if I try to convert it to a, so this would be in fact the bonus if it works properly, and if it does not work properly, so if the third value is a string value, then that means this would be someone who did not win the bonus, no bonus. So this is again one of the many different variations of the solution that you can do. Okay, let's try. So what we'll do here is now we'll try to convert this unknown value into our bonus. So I'll say bonus value, or let's call it bonus value. Maybe bonus value is equal to float unknown. Okay. Okay, let's just print the value here. Let's say this is a bonus, and otherwise we'll print it's not a bonus. Not a bonus. Okay, let's see what will happen. Okay, so there is some issue. Okay, we'll get back to this in a bit. All right. Okay, so if it is a bonus, what we're going to do is we are simply going to add the we will actually add all these four values here, right? So we have the unknown. So if this is the bonus, then that means that unknown contains the job title, right? And if it is not a bonus, then we definitely know for sure that unknown contains the this should be unknown contains the bonus value. And in this case, we know for sure that unknown will contain the job title if there is no bonus. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Okay, so we get the bonus out. Now what we'll try to do is we'll try to actually read the next line. Okay, so we know for sure we got the hourly pay, we got the employee ID, and we read the unknown value. Since this unknown value is bonus, so like in this case, in the interface manager's case, what will happen now is this would be the ID, this would be, or the hours work, this would be the ID, this would be the, what was it, bonus, and then the fourth value would be actually the job title. So we actually have to go ahead and read for a fourth time, and that is what I'm going to do. So here I know for sure that it's going to be the job title, so I'll call it job title is equal to f dot readline dot strip, like this, right? So that's the main idea here. I get the job title out, and then I can simply append all of this into my employee array. Okay, and if that is not the case, then we know for sure that the unknown will simply contain the job title. So we'll just say job title is equal to convert the string unknown, or it would already be in a string, so we don't really need to do that. We can just copy the value of unknown into the job title. Okay, so now we have all the values prepared here. Okay, so we have the hourly pay ID, and we have decided what the unknown value is, which is bonus, and then we have read the job title. We simply need to add all of this into our employee array. Okay, the question also said that if there is going to be an employee that is a manager, so I have to create the appropriate class of it. So we have the class manager here, which will take all these parameters. So I need to be careful when I create the manager. So let's call it manager object maybe, or if you don't want to create a new variable, you can just do it in one line, and this would be manager. Okay, so what does manager get? Manager would first of all get the hourly pay, then employee ID, then job title, and then the bonus value. So we just have to send them in the same order. So this would be hourly pay, then we have the employee ID, then we have the bonus. Okay, no, this would be the job title, and then finally we have the bonus value like this. And then once this object has been created, we are supposed to add this into our employee array. So we'll say employee array dot append this manager object like this. Okay, we have to do the same thing here since we know that this person did not get a bonus. So this is going to be a simple employee. So we'll say employee object, and then this would be an employee of the employee class, and then same thing, hourly pay. Okay, what does employee get? Employee will only be three parameters: pay, ID, and job title. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm getting the pay, which we got here in the first line. Then I'm getting the employee ID, which we got in the second line. And then I'm getting the job title, which we got here in the um, in here, which would be the unknown value. Also, we don't need to convert it into float here. We can just do it afterwards before we actually append the value. So here we can convert it into float like this. And then here we can also convert this into float, otherwise there would be a type mismatch error. So job title is the same, and bonus value is also supposed to be float, so we've converted it appropriately here. And then this would make sure that all the managers go into the employee array with the appropriate constructor, and then same for employee class, and then we're going to add the employee object. And I believe this would complete our whole question. So we have declared the array, we have read in the data, and then we have instantiated each to either an employee or a manager. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing. Okay, then moving on, they're saying there's another file which is rweeks1. Okay, let's open that file. So here we go, rweeks1. Okay, now what is supposed to happen here? Let's see. It stores the number of hours each employee has worked in week 1 in the order of employee number and number of hours worked. Okay, so this is the employee number of hours worked. Again, you can always add spaces to make more sense of the data like this. And you always have to undo this. Okay, that is why again I recommend that you guys must always create a backup of the original files as soon as you get them in the exam. Okay, the procedure enter hours. Okay, so let's hide all of this. So we are supposed to create a procedure. Let's do that before the main. So define enter hours, which will read in the values from the file. So file is called hours week. F is equal to open hours week, and we'll read this, and then we have to eventually close the file. Okay, so they're saying that you have to read the values from the file, find the location of each employee in the employee array, and call the method set pay for each employee. Okay, let's look at the employee array. So what will happen is when we have put in the data here, so employee array would look something like this. It wouldn't have single values, it would have objects, right? So there could be an employee object here, and then the employee would have some values. So let's go with the first one. It would be this employee here. So I'm just adding the values like this, and let's bring them into one line. So this would be the first employee. Okay, then so this is just for example purposes, I'll remove this. Okay, then we'll have another employee, and then the third one would be this person, which would be a manager. So I'm putting dot dot dot, and then there would be a manager here somewhere with all these values, comma separated values. So if you do not understand anything in the paper, always make sure that you initialize and you visualize all the data. Okay, so like this. Now you cannot just go ahead directly and pick up the employee ID. What you'll have to do is you'll have to iterate through the array. You'll have to go through each of the indices, right? So this would be index 0, this would be index 1, this would be index 2. And then at each index you're supposed to get out the employee ID, which you will get by using this function called get employee ID. And if that ID matches with this value that we have here, so then we're supposed to get the value of the pay, and then we are supposed to call the set pay method, which will take the week number, and it will take the hours worked. So week number, we know that this is week number 1. They've specifically told that in the question. So, and then we'll pass in the number of hours worked, and then that's the whole thing. It will set the value accordingly. So I think the explanation is pretty clear. Now let's move on to the implementation. Let's hide all of the additional stuff so we don't get confused. And I'm also taking this away because, okay, let's just comment this for now. All right, here we go. So we're going to open the file and we are going to read for the employees. Okay, we know for sure that there would be 8 employees. So maybe we can hard code the value here, or we can just go for the length of the array, which is the, by the way, this should be employee array is equal to empty. We should be doing that here, like this. Okay, so here we'll try. We'll say for I in range of length of the array, employee array, like this. It was called employee array. Okay, yes. All right. So we are going to get one value out of it. So let's get the current item. Current is equal to employee array index I. Now, what will it give us? It would give us this whole object. Okay. So like I said, this is pretty useless to us right now. We need to get the ID out. This is the employee number. Okay. We need to get the employee number out. So how do we do this? For that, we will get the employee ID or employee number is equal to current dot get employee number. Okay, so what was this? Again, like discussed, this is the getter method that we wrote above, which will return us the employee number. Okay, so once we get this, it will return us 12452. Okay, so we get this value. Now the question says that you also have to read the values from the file one by one. So we know that in every line we will get, first we will get the value that is the employee number, and then we'll get the number of hours worked. So we have to read it accordingly.
Do you have to use?
Okay, let's resume. So इसको दोबारा से एक दफ़ा देखते हैं. So what I've done, so I started the count from 0 because like we discussed, it is employee IDs are at odd indices in the file. I'm checking, is it an odd number of line since 1, 3, 5 and odd, so yes. So I'm going to remove the spaces from the line and I'm going to store it into the current employee ID of the file. So it will get this ID, this one by one. Okay, then I'm running a linear search on the employee array and I'm checking and I'm getting the current employee number from each index. So from index 0, I'll get 1 to 452. From index 1, I'll do a separate value. From index 2, I'll get a separate value. Once I have this value, then I'm comparing the value. Is the value that I'm getting from the file, which is 21548, equal to the employee ID from the array? If that is the case, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my employee array, current index, and I'm going to apply the set pay function, which is going to set the first value to 1 because the question says that this is for week number 1 here in the top right corner. So I'm setting it to 1 and then I have to read the second line because on the second line of all of these, I'll have the salary or the pay. So I'm reading the line here and then I'm converting it into float because this is all in string. And then when we end this, so this is the whole process. And this would end up adding actual hours and the actual salaries against the specific employee IDs for each member. And then we are supposed to create the main program and output it, and yep, that's the program.